level. This is why.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Baseball Recruiting Deep Dive. Today we're joined by Navy pitching coach Tim Reilly. A little bit about his background. So he played at Rutgers from 2006 to 2009. He coached at Rutgers, then he coached at Rider, went back to Rutgers, eventually was a recruiting coordinator there. Then he was an assistant from 2018 and 2019 at Lafayette. Was the head coach at Lafayette from 2020 to 2022, and since 2022 has been the pitching coach at Navy. Tim, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to you guys and to talk about Navy baseball.
Awesome.
Yeah, man, we appreciate having you on. So I think the first thing for me is obviously Kyle just ran through a bunch of different stops you've had through here, and obviously you've ended up at a really cool place in Navy baseball. I guess just start us off talking about what are some of the most special and cool things just about the academy itself and everything that you've come across up to this point.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely a different experience here than anywhere else I've been. I kind of tell everybody this. You know, what's exciting to me is I so believe in the mission that I'm kind of selling to recruits when we get to talk to them. When I get to see what these guys get to do on a daily basis and knowing what they're going to do when they graduate and serve our country and protect our freedom. It's such a special thing. You know, the moment that kind of hits me every day is at the end of the day, they do colors when they bring the flag down on campus. And at that point, it's getting dark and we're typically on the field. And we've screwed something up, right? Like some drill has gone wrong, batting practice or some kind of inter squad has gone wrong. And once that horn goes off and they start playing colors and they bring down the flag, everything stops. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're driving across campus, if you're in the middle of practice and you stand at attention and face the flag on campus, no matter where you are, people run up to the press box and turn the music off. Like life stops for about a minute and you really think about what you're doing here. So it's a pretty special place to be. That's kind of what has hit me as different. Obviously, like everybody asks, these guys are more disciplined than other guys you've been. Like they're college guys, they're college baseball players. They signed up to do something pretty special and pretty cool, and they have to be disciplined to do that. But it's just cool to be a part of, I have no military background. I've obviously, everybody's grandfather served in the military, but I have no kind of part in that. And this feels like a little bit of part of you're helping develop like the future leaders of our country. Right. And that's real. That's real every single day being here. So that's what's special to me is kind of like the mission and what's different.
Tim, it seems like, I feel like baseball and especially dealing with failure, it's so much of it is about perspective. And like, man, I know I'm 0 for 8 right now, but it could be a lot worse, right? And like you're talking about when the horns are played and the flags are brought down on campus and everything kind of stops, it feels like as a baseball player, I mean, what better perspective can you get than, the conditioning today or the practice today, it's been tough, but it's like, it could be a lot tougher. And like you said, the guys that you're developing and molding into future leaders of our country, like, the sacrifices that the men and women of our armed forces make, ultimately, that's got to be about the biggest perspective shift you can have when something's not going right on the baseball field, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they do have that. They go through all that leadership training and everything on campus. Baseball's a hell of a game, man. It is. It'll humble you. We all know this. I'm not going to say they don't go through that on the field, going through a slump. And that kind of, I'll kind of turn the page into the baseball side of it on that. I think that's what I love about coaching baseball is it's one of those sports that you get that training every single day. You hear this all the time. You're going to fail more. If you fail 7 times out of 10 in baseball, you're a Hall of Famer. Like you get that training in baseball every single day. Yeah, these guys have that perspective. They're what they're going to go on to do, the training, the leadership training, and everything that they do on the yard, on campus. But they're not immune from from
Yeah.
going into a slump or struggling on the field. So we still do all of that. Talk about the mental game, mental training, and things like that. But we're doing it with kids that are doing that as part of their curriculum. So yeah, it's kind of a different thing.
Yeah, let's talk about how I guess just your identification process for kids that you're recruiting. So how do you balance it? Are you more so looking like diving into kids first that have an interest in an academy, or are you just recruiting nationally, doing some background and seeing if there is any interest, just kind of going after whoever across the country?
Yeah, that was probably one of my biggest misconceptions in coming here. Being a coach at a school that we played every year, and even when I was at Rutgers and knew about Navy and any service academy, I kind of thought, you grow up dreaming to do this, right? Like you've got parents who are in the military that served, and you're a military brat, and you're traveling around the world, and you're an admiral's kid that wants to go to the Naval Academy. That's not how we kind of identify talent. We recruit pretty much kind of like I have anywhere else, where we go out and we target obviously high academic student athletes, high character student athletes that we think will be a fit, but they have to be a fit baseball wise, right? Like we're the baseball coaches. So it's our job through, I talked about like developing the future leaders. Like part of that is having success and developing you to win championships and be part of a winning program. And to do that, you have to have talented baseball players. So we're evaluating talented baseball players. Now, if we get tons of emails all the time about kids that want to, like any other school, about kids that want to come here and this is what they want to do. Obviously, if the statistics and what the coach says and all of the things that go into recruiting, the video, if those are a match, yeah, no doubt, we're going to go watch that kid play, and we're going to communicate with that kid. I'm actually in Arizona right now, sitting in a hotel room, looking at a few guys that seeing new guys, but also looking at a couple guys that targeted us. So we get our first step is kind of, can you play baseball? And one of the things that blew me away, and I started to say was, probably 70% of our roster are guys that my first phone call was, hey, listen, I'm from the Naval Academy. Let me tell you what it's about. And this wasn't on their radar at all. And that kind of blew me away. I really thought it was going to be the other way around. So most of our team are guys that weren't thinking about doing military service at all. And once they spoke with us, they kind of took a look at the information we sent them. They asked us questions. We kind of broke it down and what an opportunity it is. Visited campus, got to meet with some of our players. I think guys, when they look at Navy, and at least I thought this, is I'm walking into a bunch of militant robots, and they're not. Like I said before, like they're college kids, they're college athletes that like to have fun out the field. Once guys kind of experience what a day's like and get to meet some of their future teammates, they realize what a special opportunity it is. See how they're going to be set up for life. So in recruiting, like we're targeting. When I ask a coach, give me your best players or give me the guys that I should be targeting, I very rarely say, hey, give me the guys that are a fit for Navy. Because I was one of those guys, I had no idea what a fit for Navy was before I got here. So it's a hard question to answer if you're not part of it. So I don't ask that question. I usually just say, hey, give me your highest academic best players. And then we kind of decide after we evaluate them from a baseball standpoint and academic standpoint, are they a fit for what we're doing here at the Naval Academy, both as part of the team culture and also part of the academy culture.
Tim, one of my really good friends who was a teammate in professional baseball with the Brewers, Preston Gainey, he pitched at Navy. And I talk to him about this all the time. And just, I think it's really important for players all across the country to understand, like, what's a day in the life of a Navy baseball player, and how is it different or similar to just a normal university, state school type thing?
Yeah. First question on those first phone calls I get, right? That's probably one of the most interesting things about coaching here is usually it was like, hey, coach, tell me about your player development.
Yeah.
And here it's like, what am I going to be doing all day? So I will say this, that was another one of my misconceptions, right? Like, and I think most kids think this is that you're Monday morning, you're waking up, you're crawling through the mud, you're shooting machine guns, you're jumping off of ships and scuba, Do you do that stuff? Yeah, yeah, but that's not your day in, day out life. Your school day is probably a lot more of a normal school day than you think it is. Our guys get up, they get up for morning formation, they go to breakfast. There's 4 class periods at the beginning of the day. They have a lunch period in the middle of the day. Typically, part of lunch is about an hour, hour and a half break where they can, study hall, meet with professors, meet with tutors. We typically have a couple meetings during the day, meet with the pitchers. We'll do film review of stuff that, inter squads or bullpens or things that happen over the weekend or during the week. So they may come in for film review. We may have some kind of position meeting. Uh, then there's 2 more class periods. After that, we usually practice from about 3:30, 4 o'clock to about 6:30 every day. Guys get back for dinner. They have a couple hours of study hall, and then it's lights out. So if you ask any high school kid, give me your schedule for the day, it probably sounds like that, except without morning formation. So, and like any other college, like those 4 class periods, you may have 2 classes that day and you have 2 periods off, and you have some free time. The biggest differences that I usually tell guys are you live on a naval base, right? You live on a naval establishment. So you're wearing a uniform to class. You're going to take classes like, if you want to be in business or economics or engineering, you're going to take, your micros, your macros, your engineering classes. You're also going to take stuff like weapon systems and sea navigation, leadership classes that are going to help you in your naval career to be ready to be a naval officer. So those are kind of some of the bigger differences. There's stuff that happens every month. We have parades where the guys will march, usually on Fridays before home football games. We'll have, they'll have forestall lectures and certain meetings that they have to attend, throughout different weeks or different months. But most of the stuff that you do from a military standpoint is more of, certain meetings or briefings or things that you have to attend. Most of the more physical military training aspect of the academy, that kind of stuff happens in the summer. So you're really like going to school and playing and training to play baseball, in your daily life.
Yeah, obviously, you just mentioned they do have a military obligation in the summer as well. Can you just explain kind of how that gets broken up in terms of going out to play summer ball and between that and the military duty that they have?
Yeah, absolutely. So our summer's broken into 3 blocks essentially. One of the blocks will be a leave block where they call it leave. You're off. It's like a summer vacation. The other 2 blocks will be training blocks. Now, the training blocks will look very different kind of as you progress through your time at the academy. We like to break it into your leave block is first. So most of our guys, pretty much all of our guys, will have a leave at the beginning of the summer, and that allows them to go play summer ball. So most of our team right now is off playing summer ball. If you're a pitcher, you're getting extra innings if you didn't get that much. If you did get a good amount of innings, maybe there was something we didn't have time to kind of work on, or you want some more time to do it, and we're not playing for a championship kind of time. So they're off doing that. Hitters are going to get an extra 40, 50 at bats in the next 4 or 5 weeks before they have to report back to campus to go off to training. Your trainings are very different. The cool thing about the Naval Academy is you kind of get to see the world. I mean, we've had guys do cruises in, Pearl Harbor, Japan, Australia, Spain. They get to kind of see different places, which talking to some of the guys on the team, when I first got here, it was kind of like, hey, why did you choose to come here? What were some of the things that kind of really sold you here instead of either another academy or another school? And that's one of the big ones that kind of pops up is kind of the experiences that you get and the kind of different places you get to experience and see. But our freshmen, so that second block will be a training block. And then that third block, they call it a training block. For the first couple years, usually it's a summer school. So the guys are actually back at Navy taking classes in the morning, and then their afternoons are free to enjoy downtown Annapolis, which is beautiful, and they don't get that opportunity most of the time during school. Or they're coming out to the field, they're lifting, they're training at school, and they get to kind of get a jump on our fall season and training. Those training blocks, like I mentioned, can look really different. Freshmen, when you come in for your freshman year, this is a big question I usually get. That's when you do your basic training. They call it plebe summer at Navy. You're going to be essentially initiated into the military. It's the physical stuff that you would think, right? It's the push-ups and the runs and the carrying of the logs and the jumping and it's all the stuff that you would think in military training. But it's also learning, how you stack your books in your room and how you hang your clothes and how to recognize different ranks in the military, who you're supposed to salute as you cross campus. So you're kind of being initiated into that military life. Your second summer, freshman going into sophomore year, this is the one, and I'm excited because we're a couple weeks away from these guys going to do it, and this is the summer that everybody says, man, we had a dinner. We only had 5 seniors graduate this year, and we had a dinner, and they were asked like, what are some of the best memories? And beating Army was a big one for these guys this year, but what kept popping up is procurement, freshman into sophomore year. So every freshman in the brigade, everybody goes to San Diego, and there's 4 core service selections that you can commission in when you graduate from the Naval Academy. You can go naval aviation, you can go Marine Corps, you can go surface warfare, which is on a ship, or you can go submarines. People ask about Navy SEAL, stuff like that, special warfare. That's kind of its own little bucket, but they get to try those 4 in a month. So they go out there and they spend a week with the aviation community. They spend a week with the Marine Corps community, Camp Pendleton out there. They'll spend a week with the community of surface warfare and with subs. And like I said, I'm a couple weeks away from getting video of our guys doing barrel rolls on planes and blowing cars up in the desert, and it's some pretty cool stuff that they get to go do, and they get really excited about it. It's a very different schedule than they have usually, and they only work for part of the day and then get to kind of enjoy the area when they're out there. So it's a good experience for them. But after that summer, they get to kind of, okay, I'm going to lean more towards Marines, or I want to fly. And their kind of subsequent summers going forward, they'll start to, everybody will do a cruise. Everybody will do a cruise on a ship at some point. But some guys might go do Leatherneck and Quantico for the Marine Corps or something like that. Another thing that our guys do in the summer, Navy is unique in that the midshipmen train or they train the next group of midshipmen. So our upperclassmen are there for plebe summer, and they're training kind of the next group of freshmen that are coming into the school. So if you're chosen as a detailer, it's a big honor because you're thrust into a leadership position right away. So we have guys that'll do that too, as kind of part of their summer. I kind of went off on a tangent there, but that's what a summer looks like for our guys. They do get a chance to play summer ball, and that's kind of where they're going to do the majority of kind of like their military training commitment, especially as athletes.
No, I mean, that was great, Tim, because it's like you said, it's like a lot of it is really similar to what other guys are doing on normal campuses, everything like that. But then there's other aspects of it that are not any other people are out there riding submarines and doing barrel rolls and jets and stuff like that, which obviously sounds really cool. But back to recruiting. So with the portal, every coach we have on, we ask them like, can Navy use the portal? How does that look for you guys right now?
Yeah, we can't, which is exciting to me. I got into coaching one of the best things about doing this is you kind of get to see the knucklehead that shows up freshman year and the guy that he becomes when he graduates. Throughout my career, it's hard. I mean, you're going to college and you're probably away from home for the first time. You're meeting a whole new group of people. You have a new team that you have to prove yourself on. Not to mention the crazy professor that's grinding you about something in the classroom, right? Like there's all that stuff that you kind of have to learn for the first time, and it's cool to watch guys have success and fail early on, and then kind of figure it out, right? And we still get to do that, I think. And I don't, the landscape of college baseball is changing, and I don't blame anybody for it. I think the coaches are trying to do their best to put the best product on the field and the players. I mean, if somebody told you when you were 19 years old, I'm going to give you $100,000 to go play shortstop, you can't tell me you wouldn't do that. So like, I don't, I think we got to be honest with ourselves and what that looks like. But what's exciting here is like, we're going to see guys for 4 years. We're going to be able to develop them, and they're going to stay here. Guys don't leave, and we can't really bring guys in. If you do look at our roster the last couple of years, we had a couple transfers on the team. Last year Brock Murtha was our second baseman. He had transferred from Notre Dame. Logan Keller, he had transferred from Alabama. And they were really good everyday players for us. They came in before the portal dates kind of open. Okay. So you look at, I didn't even look at it. If you look at like it was June 1st or June 2nd. So we call it I-Day, induction day is the day when our freshmen show up on campus and begin kind of their summer training, which gives us, when the portal opens, about 3 weeks to get them through the application process, which is a pretty long one. So it's pretty impossible for us to bring anybody in.
Sure.
So yeah, we're not able to kind of shop in the portal, which I think, to be honest with you, when we give information to recruits and when we talk about what we do here is a selling point for guys. You know,
100%.
there's guys out there that are 19 and can make six figures and want to do what I just said. There's also guys out there that are like, man, I want to be somewhere for 4 years. I'm not looking to kind of jump ship. I said this to somebody else when we were watching games yesterday. Like, where are these guys going to tell their kids they graduated from, went to school? You know, there are four different schools in 4 years, and I think there's still guys out there that's important to. You know, that can be at a place and do something special. So, again, long-winded answer to say like, nah, we're not really shopping in the portal.
Well, I think you guys are kind of giving your own style of NIL and a free education for 4 years to attend one of the greatest institutions in the country. That counts.
Yeah, we got the best NIL money in the country. It keeps going. You know, it's not over when you graduate. So
yeah, I want to talk about I know you mentioned the application process can be a little. It could just be a lot. Can you just explain some of the basic things that these guys have to go through that are just different than a normal college application?
Yeah, there's definitely extra steps. But it's funny. I think sometimes that's one of the, again, on that first phone call or when you're early in the process recruiting somebody, they've heard things, right, about nominations and stuff like that can be very difficult and make the process very selective. I think there's like 11 steps, but most of those steps aren't very different from other schools. You got to submit your transcript. We're not test optional, so you have to submit your test scores, SAT or ACT. You have to do a personal statement. You have to get recommendations from teachers. Like, all of that stuff is pretty standard stuff. The stuff that you're going to run into that starts to be different is you have to do a fitness assessment. You have to submit like a medical history and do a physical. You're going to be interviewed by, we call it a blue and gold officer. So once you get to a certain part in your application, there are regional representatives of the Naval Academy that will actually meet with you and do like a mini interview with you as part of your application process. You do have to get a congressional nomination. There's 4 of them that guys will apply for, and you will go and interview with those offices, and you really just need to get one. You need it to a U.S. representative, a U.S. senator, the vice presidential, and the presidential are the 4 nominations that you can apply for. We bring in guys every year that get them. They're not impossible to get. And I think, when you're recruiting guys that we're looking at, they're very confident guys and they're humble guys. So they may be thinking, man, I don't know if I'm going to be good enough for that. We have guys every year that get them. So it's a long process. I'd say kind of the biggest or the longest part of the process is the medical side of it. It goes through, and all the service academies use the same system. So they're reviewing medical applications for every service academy, which can be a long process. And when you talk about like the transfer portal, like that's what takes the longest, to be honest with you, because you can look at grades and go, right now, this guy's a fit. He can get in. You can read recommendation, pretty much every part of the process, and say, okay, this guy's a fit for us. The medical, it gets pretty detailed. And again, these are things that people have probably heard rumors about, or parts of, allergies and medications and things that'll kind of flag as well. I can't go to the Naval Academy. There's a lot of steps to it, and there are a lot of things that you don't know about yourself that you think you know about yourself. We've run into guys with either peanut or shellfish allergies that were diagnosed with that when they were 8 months old, and they never ate a peanut again. And surprise, you don't have a peanut allergy. You just had a little bit of a rash, and mom and dad stopped giving you peanuts. So we usually don't kind of shut stuff down based on that, but it is something that we have to navigate, because if you do have something like that, or if you've taken medication for a learning disorder or something like that, those are things that we kind of have to navigate. It's a long process. We help the guys through it. The earlier we can get started on it, the better. But it's not, we've obviously committed guys in the fall of their senior year and have been able to navigate the process. So it's just a couple extra steps that guys have to go through. Fitness assessments and stuff like that. If you can't,
your ball players should be able to pass the fitness assessment, right?
Yeah. We've recruited the wrong guy if we can't do push-ups. And
is the basketball throw still in there?
I think so. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the one guys bring up all the time.
Yeah.
Is I threw it this far, or a little compass.
So Tim, obviously that, kind of that process you just described takes a little while, but like, what should, just generally speaking, your recruiting timeline, like right now, 26s are in the summer after their junior year. Like, what's your main focus this summer with the high school guys? And just typically, what's your general timeline when trying to nail down a recruiting class?
Yeah, I mean, we're still in the 26 class right now. We're identifying guys in the 27 class. We obviously can't talk to them yet.
Yeah.
There's a service academy exemption that we can actually, excuse me, reach out to them about a month before everybody else can to kind of just start to gauge interest. Now they can't.
Nice.
Yeah, right. They can't come to campus yet, which is a big one. But we can communicate with them and just kind of see if there's this something that you're going to be interested in doing and get them some information. But we're just starting to identify like the 27 class. I think we have about 8 commits in the 26 class right now. So we're looking for a very specific athlete and a couple more positions that we're looking for to kind of round out that class. This has been a place that we can. It's funny. You can go a little bit earlier because of the opportunity and kind of and what we are, right? We're different than anywhere else. There's only 3 places you can do this at the Division I level. So if you want to do it, this is the place to do it. So we're able to kind of identify guys earlier and kind of get them on campus right away in their junior year. It's no different than any other school's timeline. We've obviously, and again, it goes back to kind of what I was talking about with the application. If you have a couple of those things we have to navigate, allergies and so on and so forth, it helps to have some extra time to be able to kind of get through that paperwork. But other than that, like our timeline is not much different than any normal recruiting timeline.
Have you found that the later you recruit a class and the later a kid commits, the more confident you feel in that kid just ending up on campus and not having any second thoughts, or has that not really been an issue?
Hasn't really been an issue. No, like I said, I think when you decide to do this, and don't get me wrong, like I think a lot of times when I talk about stuff like this, it kind of leans toward the military and school side of it. These guys have decided to come play baseball at a high level and compete at the Division I level and win championships. So you've decided that, and that's what we're looking for. You've also decided to, raise your hand and say, I'm going to defend our Constitution. So once you've kind of made that decision in your head, I don't want to say that there's nothing that'll change your mind, but you've kind of come to terms like that. That's what I want to do. You've made the decisions. That's what I want to do. So we don't really have guys that do that say, hey, I want to do this. And then, you know what? Nah, usually before they know what a commitment it is. So if anything, we have guys take a little bit longer to make that decision on the front end, so that they're not making another decision on the back end. So no, like we really haven't seen a lot of that.
Tim, when obviously you talked about you guys are recruiting high academic student athletes, like generally speaking, what are those academic requirements and kind of what do they kind of look like with GPA, test scores, and is there wiggle room for athletes a little bit compared to the average Naval Academy student?
Yeah, I mean, when I'm talking to coaches or kind of giving anybody an idea of what that baseline metric is, usually I say around a 3.8 and a 1,200. Now, anybody that recruits at a high academic institution knows those numbers mean absolutely nothing. You have to look at the transcript and you kind of have to dig deeper into what's this guy doing. We've had guys at really, higher profile academic high schools that maybe fall a little bit below that, but the level of their classes make them an attractive candidate for the Naval Academy. Some of the things we look for on a transcript, what's your math like? Like you have to, it's a prereq for Navy, and I believe all the service academies, to take some kind of calculus, to take a chemistry, to take a science with a lab. Those are things that we're looking at. What level of the classes are you taking? Are you in college prep honors or AP classes? The strength of your core schedule. They want to see that you're challenging yourself. They want to see you get good grades, but they want to see that you're not taking basket weaving. So they really want to see a good core, course curriculum. The math side of things in if your test score is a little bit lighter, if you have a higher math score, that's an attractive candidate for the Naval Academy. So even if you maybe fall a little bit below, most of our guys are above it, but if you fall a little bit below, we can kind of go to bat for you because your math score is better and you look like a good candidate. So is there wiggle room? Yeah, but I'd say most of our guys fall, at or above that line, and we're just kind of digging deeper into what the picture looks like to see what the numbers really say.
Yeah. So as you're working with a kid through the recruiting process and just trying to do background and find makeup and everything. Have you found that you feel like you have to dig a little bit deeper on each kid to find out who they really are with people around them versus some of the other places you've coached?
I mean, for the most part, I think, we're always looking for the best fit anywhere I've been. So obviously, everybody's going to say this character is a big thing at the Naval Academy. Well, it was a big thing for me at Lafayette and at Rutgers and right, anywhere I've been, we wanted good. I don't think anybody says I want to bring in a bad dude.
Yeah.
So character and the kind of kid and kid that wants to learn and wants to get better and all that stuff that you would look for in the recruiting process. Talking to high school coaches, travel ball coaches, competing high school coaches, anybody you can get your hands on that knows this guy as a person. He's going to be around your team. Like that's one of the promises I try to make every recruit is like, look, we're going to go for championships. We're going to develop you as an athlete. I can't promise you you're going to win one. Like we're going to do everything we can to get there. What I'm going to promise you is you're going to have a great experience with the guys. Like we're going to do our background and we're going to make sure that these are guys that you want to. We're with these guys. I'm with these guys more than I'm with my own family. So I don't want to coach somebody that I can't stand going to the field. So yeah, we do a ton of background. I'd say here, different than other places, is kind of what we just talked about in the application process. Like it's kind of weird in one of your first phone calls to be like, "Hey man, what would happen if I gave you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?" You know what I mean? Like that's a little bit more background than I'm used to doing on that side of things. But that's really it. Like the baseball side of stuff, the talent, the ability, the handling adversity, the character stuff, like that's the same as really anywhere else I've been.
Yeah. Tim, like obviously you're the pitching coach. So when you're out on the trail and you're watching guys, but even you could speak to position players as well. Like what are the attributes of the pitchers you're looking for that really stand out to you and let you know, I want to start having conversations with this guy compared to, and with position players as well.
Yeah. So I'll start with the pitching side, obviously, because I'm a pitching coach. But there's two things we're looking for in every pitcher. That they're athletic. I want an athletic guy on the mound. I think we've fallen into this. I'm a PO, and usually PO is code for I can move in one plane, and that's it. If anything changes, I've lost all ability to do my job. I think athletic guys, they can field their position. They have more game awareness. They can hold runners. They can be quick to the plate. They can, when their mechanics stop being repeatable, they're going to be faster to adjust and get back into what works for them. So we want guys that are athletes. We don't look at 60 times in pitchers really at all. But when I see one that's like, oh, this guy runs a 6.7 and he really just pitches, that's kind of exciting. Not because he's going to steal any bases for us, but because that guy's he's an athlete.
Yeah.
So we're looking for athletes. And the other thing that we're really looking for, kind of as a general thing, is you got to be competitive. You got to have that kind of competitive fire. I think we have meetings at the end of the year with these guys as they're leaving and talking to some of these guys. Even when you were getting beat, you were competitive. You got that look about you that you're getting to me now, but you better get to me now because this is it. I'm going to figure out how to stop this and how to beat you. And those guys that are competitive all the time, I will go to war with them any day of the week, even when they're getting beat, because they never look like they're getting beat. So those are like the two things that right away, if you don't have those two things, it doesn't matter how hard you throw or what you do. From a pitching standpoint, like actually looking at the pitchability of a pitcher, I get asked all the time, does velocity matter? And I'm being asked this by people who go to these tournaments every day and they watch the guy take the mound and they watch 20 scouts pull out a radar gun. Like, yeah, man, it matters, but it's not everything, right? It's just a piece of the picture. When we look at putting together our staff, we want different looks. Like if you look at our staff, like, we had three right-handed pitchers in our starting rotation this year. One of them was a really low slot right-handed pitcher that had a ton of horizontal movement on his fastball, a fastball slider guy that he was successful because of the movement on his fastball. We had another guy that fastball, completely different profile, more of a cutting fastball. His breaking ball was a completely different profile, more of a really depth 12-6 breaking ball. And he had a changeup that he could throw to, both sides of the plate kind of hitters, completely different profile. And then our other guy, he was, a 6'4", 6'5", more of a power arm, had some ride, low 90s guy with a swing and miss, true out pitch kind of breaking ball. Those are three completely different profile pictures that if you're an offense coming in to face us this weekend, you can't kind of say, hey, here's what we're going to do all weekend. You got to go, okay, today we're doing this, today we're doing that. This is how we're going to try to beat them. Some different looks out of the pen. We have a couple lefties that are smaller and sink the ball. We have a lefty who's 6'5" that can really run it up there and come after you with a good breakable. So what we're looking for are guys that can command their fastball up to all four sides, inside, outside, up and down, have the presence of an above average secondary pitch. If that's a breaking ball, great. If it's a changeup, we've got guys that's their above average secondary pitch. But you got to be able to command it in the zone, throw it for a strike, and throw it for something that's going to be chased out of the zone. And like I said, like when you build out the staff, you're looking for some variety. So that's what we look for. I was watching a guy last week who I'm watching this guy and I'm like, man, the radar gun doesn't say this good pitch, but what is going on? This is one of the best sliders I've seen. It's a Bugs Bunny pitch for those that know what that means. And it's, it's getting the desired result. And you look at the metrics and it's like, well, that's 3,000 plus spin. Like, okay, great. That's why it's doing that. But your eyes were already telling you that, right? So that's kind of like from the pitching side, what generally we're looking for, or from the hitting side, I'd start with the same thing, like somebody that's athletic. We really value speed in our program. If you look at our park, it's a deep park. We like to play fast. That's just kind of our style of play. We want to steal bases. We want to pressure the defense. We want you to know on the mound that, like, if there's somebody on base, we're trying to get you. Like we're trying to take that extra base. So we do really do prioritize speed. From a hitting standpoint, and these are just kind of a couple. You look for the things that are hard to develop, right? Same thing, kind of on the pitching side. We got a lot of confidence in our development practices, but there are certain things that are hard to develop, right? So, a big one for me. So if you're an athletic guy, like, what, you have some rhythm, you have some balance in your swing. I've seen guys that I really like that did not have good weekends, right? Because they do certain things really well. And, rhythm is a tough thing. If you have rhythm, we can usually get you on time, right? If you don't have it, it's hard if you don't have rhythm to teach somebody how to dance, right? If you can't dance, like there's no fixing that. So somebody with some rhythm, somebody with some balance. Big ones for me on the hitting side is swing and miss in the zone and chase out of the zone. I think those are tough things to kind of. So swing it, if you're making good swing decisions and you're swinging at pitches that are in the zone, and you're missing them, well, that's some eye-hand coordination. That's some bat to ball, right? That's an indicator of that. If you're having trouble identifying pitches and you're constantly swinging at pitches that are breaking out of the zone or moving out of the zone or never starting in the zone and you're swinging at it, that's some, swing decision stuff that also in my career has been kind of a tough thing to break. But I've seen guys in a weekend, swinging at the right pitches, flying out, grounding out. Maybe they're on their front foot or they're getting jammed, and you can just tell he's got some rhythm. He's not on time, but like he makes good swing decisions, and he's just not getting hits. Like those are kind of like the intangible things that we look for out of pitchers and position players.
Obviously, I mean, Chuck was obviously a well-known and respected pitching coach with Notre Dame and everything. But how have you guys or how do you guys work together on the development side with arms?
Yeah, Chuck's awesome to work for. I mean, he's been great. I had known Chuck for a long time. I mean, I was at Rutgers when he was at Monmouth, so that Jersey recruiting circle is pretty tight. There's a lot of us kind of strewn out across the country now.
Okay.
But I've known him for a long time. I was really lucky that he decided to kind of keep me here because I was here for a year under Coach Kostakopoulos, and that was a great experience. But it's been awesome to work for Chuck. What's great is I can bounce stuff off of him, but he's really good about kind of letting us kind of coach. He says it all the time, like, I hired you to do a job and I trust that you're going to do it. That's why you're here. So he's really kind of let me take the reins with the pitching staff and run it. But it's good to have somebody with that knowledge and that background to be able to kind of bounce stuff off of. Man, I can't figure this guy's breaking ball out, or we can't figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
Like, what would you do? So it's been awesome to kind of have that wealth of knowledge here. But no, I really appreciate kind of how he lets us kind of go work.
Tim, obviously with this house settlement thing going on, what's Navy going to be doing with that? Are you guys going to be at the 34-man roster next year? What's that going to look like for you guys?
Yeah, so I don't know. It's kind of a moving target right now. You read anything and you ask anybody, uh, and even like some of the officials that are
Yeah.
tasked with this don't know. Don't know on the opt-out side. I'm sorry. The opt-in is pretty clear right now. Like there is a cut. Here's what it's going to look like. It's 34 roster. We're an opt-out institution because these guys are government employees and we can't pay them NIL money. So we're going to opt out. It's kind of unclear. It looks like guys are going to be grandfathered in. So even if there's roster limits, you're going to be able to keep a couple extra guys. But everybody keeps saying it's between it's going back to the old way or it's going to be an unlimited roster. And I think all of the talk was about what is the opt-in going to look like, and everybody forgot that there's going to be teams that don't do it. So we're still kind of, regardless, we're going to pretty much operate the way we have been. We're not a team that brought in 60 guys to get the 40. We always we recruit to need, and we bring in the guys that we need. So there isn't a big difference to how we kind of go about our business. If anything, like I think you go out and you recruit, it's a very different recruiting landscape right now. Like I'm at events that used to be wall to wall scouts, and we're in the middle of the transfer portal period right now. So they're sitting at home watching video or at summer ball games. So I think there's going to be a different pool of guys that we can recruit from, at all kind of mid-major levels, Division II and Division III, that because of the roster limits at different schools now, it's going to open up some opportunities. But as far as the way we kind of go about it, it's not going to change them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think really the last thing I have is how does professional baseball look for these guys now? Obviously, I coach Sam Ruda, who's out there playing, and I know Noah Song, who you guys had a really good career, and I think he's in Double A now with the Red Sox. But yeah, how does a professional opportunity look for these guys now?
Yeah. So there was and it's funny, like when you recruit guys, they Google it, and they go looking for it. A couple years ago, I think it was 2023. They came out with this Defense Authoritarian Act or something like that. That was called, and it essentially made you at least serve for a couple years before you could go play pro
Right.
sport. Now there was an amendment to that this year, so you can get a waiver to go play and start your professional career in athletics. We actually had a football player, Ray Lane, this year get drafted by the Jaguars, I think. And he, was able to get his waiver and he's going to be able to go play. So there is an opportunity to do that. I think when a guys ask me that, I tell them like, you don't have to give up your dream of playing a pro sport to go to a service academy.
Yeah.
If you're good enough, there's going to be an opportunity to do that. So the short answer is yes, there's an ability to get a waiver. There's a little bit more paperwork than other schools that you would go to. But it's not an impossible thing to do, and guys have done it and they're doing it. Like you mentioned, like Noah Song. So it's absolutely possible.
Yeah.
No, Tim, thanks so much for doing this, man. And obviously everybody check out Navy. I think this is going to be really